We are back on our third day of ASRM. My voice is a little raspy. We've had an incredible 3 days meeting really awesome providers of healthcare in the fertility space. This is the 75th American Society of Reproductive Medicine meeting. I can't believe it's been 75,
That's
okay?
amazing.
I am Alice Crisci, founder and CEO of MedAnswers and the FertilityAnswers app, and standing with me is one of our experts on the platform, Lisa Schuman, who is a licensed clinical social worker, has built an incredible company, and has an area of expertise that applies to me and my story, and probably a lot of your stories out there. As most people know, Lisa, I have a donor-conceived son, Dante. We use his images in a lot of our marketing. He's now 6 years old. I went through cancer 11 and a half years ago, and I picked an anonymous sperm donor way back then. Language really matters, though, in how we describe the donor-conceived market. And I've had people, say, well, who's his dad? Where's his father? Talk to me about what you see out there and how we should be using terminology correctly.
Yeah, well, that sort of feeling is terrible, right? People say, where's the dad? And there isn't a dad. Now, of course, we know the donor is so important, right? So even if your child is just like you, and your child eats pizza and likes to go bike riding and all the things that you like, there's still a part of him that is connected to somebody else, right?
Yes.
Even if it's 2%. So we all want to feel good about the donor. So
Yes.
I'm not saying we shouldn't feel good and we shouldn't represent the donor in a positive way. We need to do that. However, the donor is not the dad or the mom if you're using an egg donor.
Correct.
Right? And so people get stuck in this kind of old heteronormative idea about mom and dad and the way that family is supposed to look. And how are we supposed to think about it differently? Well, we need to think about the donor as this wonderful person who helped us so much and really helped us build our family, but that person's not the dad, right? And as soon as we start thinking about that person as the dad, and I see this, in my gay couples, in my single parents, in my heterosexual couples, people will refer to their donor as the mom or the dad. And it's really a mistake because...
It is a mistake.
It's
the kid feels abandoned.
Yeah.
I don't ever want my son to feel abandoned by somebody who had nothing to do with the choice to bring him into the world.
Or parenting.
He gave us an incredible gift. And, I think that's been one of my goals in parenting, is that Dante appreciates and honors, like, wow, what a gift, because it gave us the chance to be together.
Yes.
Right? And we have connected with some of we call dibblings, the donor siblings.
Yes.
I don't know if other people call them dibblings, but we
Yes,
do.
I call them dibblings.
Okay, you do
yes,
too.
Yes.
Okay, good. And that's been a beautiful thing too. And Dante seems, even at 6, he's very clear that these people are special relationships, but not my half siblings, like not people that I'm going to be raised with.
Right.
And that we have this shared genetic material, and he knows a lot about DNA. But how do you recommend people talk about that part of it when there is a donor conceived and we know that there's other children that also were donor conceived? How do you recommend people approach that conversation with their child? Like, hey, you have some genetically related people out there to you from this donor as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, not to minimize it at all, but I think most people want different siblings than the ones they have anyway, right? So, people are always curious about their siblings, right?
Right.
So in the dibbling situation, kids are curious.
They are
and so I don't
curious.
want people to feel intimidated by it or feel threatened. Sometimes people feel
Yes.
like, are they interested? People are always worried that those people, the donor and the donor-conceived siblings, are going to be interested in caring for your child. They're not. Any more than you are interested in caring for their children, right?
Right.
It's just not the case. And so I think over time, as you start your narrative with your child, you're going to, over time, in developmentally appropriate ways, and we teach this at my program at the Center for Family Building, we teach people how to talk to their children about donor conception.
Wonderful.
In a developmentally appropriate way. We have this great book, which I showed you this morning, that helps people start to chronicle their stories so that you actually have a physical book just for your child. And then you start to talk to them about the fact that there is somebody else that is genetically connected to you. That doesn't mean that that's your sister or brother, as you said. This is somebody who's genetically connected to you, and that your donor is a very special person too, but to refer to them as a donor, not as the mom or dad, because I think it really minimizes your role as a parent And when you're parenting, nobody else is going to parent your child, right? And if you're a one mom or one dad family or a gay family or heterosexual family that uses donor conception, you're beautiful the way you are. You don't need to have that other parent or other sibling to be whole.
How do you recommend we answer the very invasive, intrusive, and very frustrating question when people say, as a single mother by choice or as a lesbian couple having a child, but where's the male influence in your child's life?
You don't need one. Why do you need one? You have all the people who are important to you, and some may be women, some may be men. You don't know what your child's going to be interested in anyway, right? And there are all these new schools that are popping up that are gender neutral. And there's been research in Sweden that shows that those gender neutral schools really help children expand themselves. There was some research that said that being identified as male puts you in a situation to be more proactive, and being identified as female makes you more creative and more inquisitive. And so when in these studies in Sweden, they looked at these male and female roles, and when children were raised without those roles, they tended to be able to start to develop more of those attributes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. I mean, I do remember when my son Dante, was kind of coming up, and he said, "Why is pink only for girls? That's so silly."
Yeah.
And I loved his perspective on that, and I do feel like we need more of that, in third-party reproduction, and and then you see it with toys all the time, right?
Yes.
I mean, just the marketing towards a gender. So I love that study.
Yeah.
Where could people read that study? Is it through PubMed?
Yeah, you could look it up on PubMed.
So you know what? We'll put the link for it. We'll find it. We'll put the link in this in the comments, and that way people can find it. I think these are really important topics of conversation, and also normalizing that there's all kinds of ways to make a family.
Yes.
Right? And having more children who already can articulate their own story when they do go to school.
Yes.
Right? And your book seems like a really wonderful tool for that, so that when kids ask them, do you ever wish you had a dad? They're armed with the words to say.
Yes, absolutely. And I run a group called Tip Top, which is a group for children who are donor conceived, and also we have adopted children, which helps children develop a narrative for themselves so they can deal with that in the playground or in the supermarket. Because it's hard enough for parents, right, when somebody says, "Where's the dad?"
Right.
And on the spot you have to think about what your answer is going to be.
Right.
You can imagine what it's like for
and
the
not
kids.
be defensive. I mean, we don't want to be defensive in front of our child, because then they'll pick up on that and think that they have to be defensive, rather than kind of owning and being confident with the story, right? What impact? I mean, I love the camp, right? It's a camp that you run.
It used to be It used to 9 years we ran it as a camp,
Okay.
and now we do day-long workshops. So
it's incredible.
Yeah.
What's the difference that you've seen in kind of the before and the after of people who have taken the workshop, of young people who have taken the workshop?
Well, it's really incredible because these kids learn about how they were conceived, but they also learn about themselves. Just like adults. Some kids are soapbox kids and they want to tell the world everything, and some kids are more private. And so we help them filter their information through their own personality, being respectful of who they are.
Wonderful.
And then we give them choices to help them deal with those situations, and then we help them practice. And the parents are almost always very interested in how the children receive the information. Usually the parents are really surprised that their child likes this but doesn't like that. And so we send them home with all their information from that day, and then the parents can join the children as their allies in going out into the world and helping them rehearse this.
Incredible. It's really incredible. Where do you get to participate in that?
Well, this year, I think, usually every spring we run it. This spring, we're going to run it again at the Gay and Lesbian Center in the Village.
Okay, great.
In New York City.
In New York City.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So everybody who's in New York City, that is a wonderful opportunity. Can they go to your website to learn about it?
Yes, and we have ebooks on the website.
Okay,
and
great.
We have counseling if anybody needs counseling. We do lots of work online. So if anybody wants to have a Zoom consult, we speak to people internationally.
Wonderful.
And would be happy to.
I think that's fantastic. So So it is the, I'm going to butcher the name of your
Center
website.
for Family
Yes,
Building.
the Center for Family Building. So this is a really important resource. I can't even stress it enough. What Lisa's created is critical to our whole entire field. If you need and are seeking third-party reproduction as part of your family building path, endless resources on her site, wonderful blogger as well. You can come to the Fertility Answers app on iOS and Android to ask specific questions. Lisa is one of our experts and pick the psychosocial category. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you one question. You know, a lot of people come to us on the app and they're asking questions, and it really seems obvious that connecting with a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, along their struggle would be very important.
Very important.
And I'm even seeing folks pick categories to ask questions, and they say things that are heartbreaking, like, if I don't give my husband a child, he'll leave me. You know, or I've been struggling for 7 years, I can't do this anymore. And you hear the hopelessness just in how they phrase the question. In addition to your center, you know, for connecting with someone to do Skype consults or Zoom consults, where else should people be seeking out care all over the world when it comes to the psychosocial support? Is it a regular therapist? Is it a specialist in reproductive medicine? You know, is there a particular discipline, you know, in your colleagues that they should be looking for so that we can advise them how to find the right fit for them?
Yeah. Well, I would say that this group, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, is fantastic. And if you go on the website, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, and look under the mental health division, we have a list of therapists. I would say the people who have been doing this the longest have the most training and really understand the most. So I would only really look here because this is where people get trained and are specialized. Lots of therapists don't really know this industry.
That's right.
And I find that patients very often get frustrated. They say, I have to explain to my therapist what an IUI means or what an IVF means, or you know, any of this, and that's frustrating.
Of course it is.
You're spending all this time and energy and money to see somebody who doesn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course it is.
So it's really important, I think, to get someone who knows this industry.
Okay, I love that. So it's ASRM.org. You can go to that website. We'll put the link in the comments as well. Lisa, thank you so much for this conversation. I think it's the beginning of a lot more conversations between Lisa and I in the psychosocial category, that we are exhausted but happy to bring you so much great content from 3 days of ASRM. And download the Fertility Answers app on iOS or Android to connect with us further, and we will see you soon.